Undawn is a brand new free-to-play zombie survival MMORPG that just hit Steam and mobile on June 13, 2023. Originally, this video was going to be a short review crammed into my weekly Free Day Friday video, but I ended up falling in love with it and have almost 24 hours of playtime already. So today, I'm going to give you a thorough first impressions. I'm going to talk about the different game modes, dungeons, interface, immersion qualities, feel, and monetization. I'm also going to talk about the semi-mobile experience and the shortcomings around that. First, let's talk about the controls and settings. This is a shooter game after all, so having some customizability is very important. There are settings for just about everything. You can toggle auto sprint, auto vault, name UI, chat collapsibility, quest UI, invite acceptability, camera behavior, vibration, and even the temperature unit for you non-US folks out there. The graphics settings have a basic 6-tier system from potato to cinematic scale, and a 5-tier framerate scale. I don't like that the framerate scale doesn't show the actual FPS number, but for a game like this, anything above high will be good enough for everything except the PvP modes. There are also atmospheric filters like a lot of newer games are adding, so that's cool. It's worth noting that the toggle for tips and alt key suggestion are tucked away at the bottom of the video settings. You will probably want to turn these off. The next set of settings is for firearms customization, which includes the ever-important sensitivity and scoping toggles. Instead of these options being based per gun like in some older shooters with the same level of mod customization, you can adjust the sensitivity based on which scope you are using. This really seems like a no-brainer solution to the sensitivity issue of shooter games, and I really appreciate seeing it. Beyond the firearms settings are controls and vehicle, which is only important for the mobile interface. There is also a customizable key bindings interface, which a lot of mobile optional games do not include. Overall, the settings in Undawn are thorough, compromising, and easy to use. While some could be less descriptive and more technically specific, they are generally easy to understand, so you shouldn't run into any issues. Note that there are also collapsibility toggles on the main HUD to collapse things like the dailies and rewards interface. Next, let's take a brief look at all the different modes of gameplay. That said, this will be the bulk of this video. The primary two modes that you will be spending your time in is the open world and base building. In the open world there is gathering, fighting, and questing. As far as I have seen so far, there isn't PvP in the open world content, but I have not spent too much time outside the first and second major zones. Speaking of which, look at how gigantic this map is. Fortunately for you, there are fast travel points, but remember to actually unlock them when you visit. There is also accelerated travel via motorbike or car. You get the motorbike as part of the early story quest, but you'll have to craft the car if you want it. You also have to maintain your vehicles and keep them fueled. Fortunately, vehicles can take a ton of beatings and rough riding before they actually start to warn you that they are about to break. I definitely abused my motorbike, because you are immune to fall damage while riding one. That said, you will take damage if you jump off before coming to a complete stop. Don't break your legs. Traveling between zones is also, surprisingly, somewhat seamless, with just the briefest loading animation, but it's not enough to completely break immersion. You might be wondering what there is to do in the overworld besides following the linear quest. I'm happy to tell you that exploration outside of quests is a big deal in this game. You're going to want to go everywhere you can to find all the collectibles on each map. I suggest marking down on a piece of paper if you find any that you can't get to upon first visit. You'll be able to see the collectibles on the mini-map, but not the expanded map. The rewards for completing a zone entirely are absolutely worth it. Additionally, you will want to be gathering tons of materials, literal metric tons. To get to tier 3 housing, you're going to need upwards of 20,000 wood and stone. Speaking of housing, you get your first base as part of the story quest. It's pretty basic at first, but the default base building options are pretty good. I suggest making all of the crafting benches as soon as possible, even though you will get some quests down the line that ask you to make specific ones. I didn't feel like at the pace of the game that the timing was good when it finally asked me to make a refinery, but you do you. You won't be able to actually uncraft workbenches until character level 30. There is some amount of tidying and regular maintenance to do on the base, as well as gardening and growing crops, but the timing on this is rather broad and forgiving, so you won't be missing out if you take a break from the game. One thing I'm disappointed about is that if you install a bathroom in the house and your character needs to use the toilet as part of their many daily hygiene and health needs, you will summon a barrel toilet out of thin air instead of using the one you built, no matter how close you are to it. -1 immersion point from me. Beyond that, there's not much to do in the base except decorating, building it really tall, and farming and crafting. It's worth noting that at many of the crafting benches, you can quick buy materials from the shop interface instead of having to run all the way back to a main city. Also, later in the game you can get better plots of land around the world. At this time, I'm unsure if you can own more than one plot of land, so I'll keep you updated in the pinned comment below this video. Next, let's talk about dungeons and parties. There are two types of dungeons. The primary one is a closed dungeon dungeon, which is much like the dungeons you'll find in other MMORPGs. You go through them and clear out a bunch of trash mobs, maybe interact with some items here and there, and occasionally fight more elite mobs. At the end, there is a boss with many health bars and a ton of damage dealing capability, so make sure you've mastered dodge rolling. There aren't exactly class roles in the game, but you can equip secondary and tertiary abilities at higher levels that include group heals and damage mitigation. Interestingly, at the end there is a rank rewarding the player who took the most damage, as if to suggest that you should designate an actual tank, but I have yet to see a dungeon where that can't just be anyone. The prizes for dungeons are a huge amount of experience for the first time you complete it, or as a daily, and a bunch of materials to upgrade your equipment and abilities. The second type of dungeon is an event dungeon. These are often in the open world in micro-instances with a seamless transition instead of a loading screen. Don't let that confuse you. For these you'll want to pay attention to the quest prompts instead of just running into battle. I'm personally not a big fan of these. Party Finder is relatively easy to use and understand, so I recommend using the Auto Finder instead of spamming the LFG chat channel. You can find the Party Finder by clicking the flag next to the Quest's UI and clicking Join Team. When you complete finding a party, it will always ask if you want to enter the dedicated voice chat for the party, which seems like a neat feature until you realize that the mobile players are going to sound like game sounds the entire time. Just leave this off, or use Discord with your friends. That said, another plus to dungeons is that they all have 3 difficulty modes. I'm unsure at this time if there are just more mobs or if they're just harder, as I haven't reached the level to do hard mode of the lowest level dungeon yet, so I will update in the pinned comment below. The next major type of content is PvP. These are in several different kinds of battlegrounds. Disappointingly, the King of the Hill Point Capture 1 is gated behind a timed event wall, so you will need to be online at the right time to participate. There are several other PvP modes including Team Deathmatch and others, which can be accessed through the daily event interface. You can also find it under Tournament at the bottom of the 4-diamond menu close to your mini-map. Note that while you can participate multiple times per day, you will only get the material rewards once per day or a few times per week. You can also earn combat points for each match, but there is a weekly cap on how many points you can earn. The rewards for spending points are limited to some basic materials and rare armor and weapon upgrade components. This is not ideal. I would have liked to see the ability to earn special PvP gear or cosmetics, titles, and more. That said, some titles and permanent stat upgrades can be earned through achievements, of which there are at least 5 that are reliant on participating in PvP modes. There are other events to take up some time throughout the day, including World Boss Raid events. Unfortunately, the last time I was online for a raid event, I did not fast travel to it, so I ended up missing out. When I do join one, I will update the pinned comment with my experience. Now then, let me complain for a moment about the semi-mobile interface. While the PC port of the game feels mostly good, with smooth controls, very little lag, and a ton of sensitivity customization and tools to get around, there is one thing that ruins part of the experience for me. That one thing is toggling between gunfire mode and interface mode. It's not as simple as toggling Alt on and off, which would be fine. It's also not as simple as allowing the player to long press Alt to bring up the mouse like in many games with separate interface controls. My issue is that going into some menus will automatically put you back into touchscreen controls instead of defaulting to mouse mode all the time. This doesn't make sense even for the mobile port because all controls on mobile are touchscreen. The PC port should really have mouse mode be default in all non-combat interfaces. There isn't even an interface option to set this behavior. It irks me, it annoys me. It is going to ruin the game for me until I have all the best in slot gear and skills maxed out. I hope they change this. Long press Alt for mouse would be the ideal fix. Other than that, I don't have many complaints except maybe the keybind conflicts inside the base for build and use, which are both set to F by default. You also can't change that in settings, so that's another thing to fix. Monetization-wise, there are a few pay-to-win aspects, but these are more pay to progress slightly faster. Each server has a server-wide level cap so that new players aren't being left in the dust. The gacha system gives it most materials and cosmetics, although some cosmetics give very minor stat boosts to charisma, a stat only used in the relationship content of the game, which I suspect gives you a boost for playing dungeons with friends instead of strangers. Overall, despite a few small interface and UI problems, Undawn is a welcome addition to the MMORPG space. I say this with consideration that it has a mobile port because the UI between the 2 ports is drastically different. That said, you could likely also play the PC version on a tablet because it permits the option to set up mobile controls. The combat feels both smooth and exhilarating. Danger is real, but with skill and timing and learning the behavior of various enemies, you can solo most content if you have issues finding a group. The endgame seems to suggest that there might be open-world PvP between camps, the kills of the game, including base invasion. At night, zombies get more aggressive and there are more of them. There are monsters and mutants and even some small kaiju. I feel like I always have to keep my trigger finger ready to gun down some hostiles. There are social events and you could even probably host social gatherings in the open world. The game feels like a proper MMO. It looks like a proper MMO. It is something I'm going to be playing long-term over on Twitch and VStream to really see how MMO-ish it gets. I hope you'll join me as I play through it. You can join me on server 1002 Val and Contado. I will make a guild and post the name in the pinned comment. Make sure to click that subscribe button for updates and to learn about more brand new free-to-play games every weekend. Also check out the description of this video and join the Discord. It may look empty at first, but there's a bunch of stuff in there once I give you a role. Thank you to my patrons for making these videos possible. That said, I am switching from Patreon to Ko-Fi over the next few months, link below. Thank you Descript for helping me continue to make videos despite a verbal disability with the personalized Overdub tool. Before you go, leave a comment telling me what you think about the game. Would you like to see more MMOs with mobile support? Why or why not?
And get checked first.
I am shocked that there is voice acting in this game.
Come with me. I'll take you to the inspection.
Not very good, but it's there. And that's what matters. The less I have to read,
Over here.
the better it is. Hey there. We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.